Alright, so in this file, we have these moving heads right here. And what we want to do is we want to set it so that one of our faders over here, you know, triggers the gobo on fader motion, and then when we press our playback button, it will advance one by one through the gobos. So this is how you do it. So we have our moving heads selected. Say we want to do this as a group. This would be the easiest way to do it. So all four of our moving heads will do this. It'll be applied to all those. So what we do is we go to gobo, and 1 is the open one, which we don't need to use. So 2 will be this design. Now from here, you just press record, and then assign it to a playback. Now what we do is we repeat this step for each one of the gobos. So then we'd select the third gobo, record, play, and I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of them. Stars, period, and the infamous question mark. Record. Alright, so on this playback right here we have 7 gobos to choose from. Now, I'm going to clear my programming window. That way, you know, nothing that I was doing previously is applied to what's going to happen to the gobos for these 4 fixtures. Now, let's make sure that QList02 is set to fader start, and it is. We got lucky. It's set to halt, which means it won't page through them automatically. It will wait for your next command, which is exactly what we want. Now, in this situation, this is the way that it works. Even though we move the fader a little bit, you'll notice that the program will turn on. See how it turned yellow? And right now we're at 19%. Even though it kicks in, the way that this works is that it won't actually change gobos until you pass 50%. As you can tell, these gobos are still set to, you know, the wide open, you know, look to them. Now once we go past 50%, see how we change to our first gobo, which is this swirly pattern. This is actually really cool. I like the way this works because, you know, if you wanted to go in and out of like different gobos as compared to the open gobo, it's as simple as just dropping your fader and then you're back into open, apply a gobo, open. So I kind of really like the way this works. So we're on step 1, which is this, and now every time we press our playback button, what will happen is we will rotate one gobo position until we gradually cycle through all of them. If we have a controller like a MIDI-Con, there is a playback button below our primary playback button that plays them in the reverse order. So if you have a certain look in mind with a certain gobo, you can use this button right here to page forward, and then use the MIDI-Con, the button below the normal playback button, to reverse the order in which you're cycling through gobos, which is actually really cool. Let's see what else I can show you about what different things you can do with parameters on faders. Now, let's select the moving heads again, and let's also notice that in the previous movie, the gobo scroll feature was right here. As you can tell, it's grayed out, which means that this fixture doesn't simply scroll through gobos at a certain speed. It's not a feature within the fixture itself. But what it does have is it has a forward and reverse rotation pattern. So you can get the gobos to rotate in one direction, rotate in the other direction, and the farther this this little slider is from the middle, the faster they'll go. So this is kind of cool what we can do. What we can do is we can take the slider rotator, crank it up all the way in one direction, press record, and then throw it on a playback fader. And now we can take the same slider, drop it all the way in the opposite direction, press record, and throw it on a fader. Now what we'll do is we'll clear our programming window out, and you know, just so you keep in habit of doing this, because you don't want to say QList 02, 05, 06 all the time. We can go into Q. We can go to QList 5, rename, clear, and then you can write rotate forward. QList 6, we can rename to rotate backwards. Alright. Now, in this situation, you'd either want it to rotate forward or backwards. You never want them to conflict. So because you don't want these two cue lists to conflict, we would go into the playback settings, and I actually did this previously, but you go to the bundle settings and throw them on a bundle with each other. This is on bundle 24. This is also on bundle 24. So back to what I said in the previous movie about different bundles. No two cue lists on the same bundle can play at the same time. They'll actually cancel each other out, which in this situation is exactly what we want. So here we have our, this enables the gobo switch, and then as we click the buttons, we're paging through the different gobos, as we can see in the programmer window. So we have the gobo we want, but now we want it to rotate. So if we want it to rotate forward, we pull our fader up, and as the number goes up, that will change the speed at which it rotates forward. Now, if we decide that we want to start rotating in the opposite direction, we would then just start moving the next fader, and as you tell, now it's now rotating in the opposite direction, turning off the cue list that is telling it to rotate forward. So this is pretty cool. Examples of what you can do on faders. So rather than have a full-featured cue list on our playback button section, where you'd have different things, different parameters already pre-programmed into it, using faders, you can really kind of add and subtract to a certain program. Similarly to this, I keep on going to gobo examples when I say parameters on faders, but you can also put colors on faders. That's also a very cool way to do it. So since we're still working on these movers, I'll go and rotate them. I'll go to select the movers, and from here, these do not have color mixing. It's not a feature, so it'll be a fixed color that we're going to rotate through. Now, white is open, so we can leave that off, and then we can just select red, and then we can record this to here. So this is the new cue list 5. From here, we can go down to the new cue list 5. We can rename it, and we'll call this one colors. And so red will be our first one, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it takes too much time, but I can take yellow, record, apply. This is like a light green color, record, apply, and I'll just do this pinkish color, and then I'll stop. Okay, clear our programming window. Now from here, we're not bundled, we're set to fader start, which we want, and we're set to halt, which is what we want. Now, from this position, this should work similarly. The fader should not change the color until you're more than halfway. So, as you can tell, I've moved it 27%, and if you look right here, the colors are still set to white. So once I exceed 50%, boom, they turn red. That's why there's no point in selecting white or open as a color. If we wanted it to go to white or open, we would just drop the fader down. So that's why I skipped over that intentionally. Now from here, if we wanted to go to the next color, we can move forward and backwards in colors and change the colors of our movers. So as a quick example of what we could do, in this bank I happen to have a this is set to random. So the movers are going to be moving randomly. As you can tell, the position of each individual fixture is kind of moving around at their own random pace. So this playback button only has information regarding the moving head's position, no other information. So by default, we're going to have this white with no gobo, just wide open. So the moving heads are moving in position, and then from here, not even dimmer information. So from here, if we wanted to make sure that you could see something, because right now you'd see the heads move, but you wouldn't see any light. You'd move fader 4 on bank 1, which is the dimmer for the movers. As you can tell, we're turning them up. All right, now from here on bank 3, we have them set to yellow. If we want them to go white, we can just pull the fader. If we want to have them change colors, we can have them go back through. And then similarly, if you want to change it to a gobo, you change the gobo. You page through until you find the one you want. When you find the one you want, then you pick which direction you want to rotate. You want to rotate backwards, here's the speed at which you're rotating backwards, which is actually really cool. So as you can tell, you can almost customize your program completely based on, based on a certain bank of playback faders and parameters that have been assigned to them. which is really cool. So this is like a good way to work, you know, and you can just assign one bank per group of fixtures and just have different parameters that you can control, which is definitely you know, a really cool way to work. So that's what I got for this video. This is parameters on faders volume 2.